Our chief White House correspondent, Jim Acosta.
Shouldn't you reserve the term enemy for people who are actually the enemy of the United States rather than journalists?
The president's not referencing all media. He's talking about the growing amount of fake news that exists in the country, and the president's calling that out.
Jim Acosta opened up in a statement about having his press credentials revoked. "I have always endeavored to conduct myself as a diligent but respectful reporter who asks probing but fair questions. The revocation of my White House press credential not only destroys my ability to perform my current job, it will follow me for the rest of my career. My reputation and my future career prospects have all been significantly harmed if not completely devastated. This has frightened both me and my family, and required us to take additional security measures in our daily lives," he continued, adding that he and his family have been receiving death threats regularly. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders fired back at CNN reporter Jim Acosta after CNN announced its lawsuit against President Donald Trump. CNN claimed the revocation of Acosta's White House credentials violated CNN and Acosta's First Amendment and Fifth Amendment rights. If left unchallenged, the actions of the White House would create a dangerous chilling effect for any journalist who covers our elected officials, CNN claimed. Sanders, who has already meticulously explained why Acosta's press pass was suspended, responded to the lawsuit in a statement. "We have been advised that CNN has filed a complaint challenging the suspension of Jim Acosta's hard pass. This is just more grandstanding from CNN, and we will vigorously defend against this lawsuit." CNN, who has nearly 50 additional hard pass holders, and Mr. Acosta is no more or less special than any other media outlet or reporter with respect to the First Amendment. After Mr. Acosta asked the president 2 questions, each of which the president answered, he physically refused to surrender a White House microphone to an intern, so that other reporters might ask their questions. This was not the first time this reporter has inappropriately refused to yield to other reporters. The White House cannot run an orderly and fair press conference when a reporter acts this way, which is neither appropriate nor professional. The First Amendment is not served when a single reporter, of more than 150 present, attempts to monopolize the floor. If there is no check on this type of behavior, it impedes the ability of the president, the White House staff, and members of the media to conduct business. Sanders is right once again. Aside from his own relentless self-promotion, there is nothing special about Acosta, and any other CNN reporter would likely do the job just as well as he did. Acosta is known for his disorderly conduct. In July, Acosta refused to leave the Oval Office during a photo opportunity, which led to a White House staffer forcing him out. Imagine if every reporter acted like Acosta. It would be complete chaos and nobody would get the chance to ask their questions. CNN's argument that Trump violated the network's First Amendment rights is flimsy, because they have many competent reporters with White House press credentials. It's good the Sanders and the White House are standing up to this flimsy lawsuit, and ensuring that future news conferences are orderly and fair.
Between the media and the Trump White House just got dialed up to 11. CNN is now suing President Trump and several aides for revoking Jim Acosta's press pass after this now infamous moment in the Eastern Watch.
That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country, you run CNN, right. And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President,
that's enough.
Ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Excuse me. That's enough.
Mr. President, I have one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Ooh, he was like, shut your pie hole, Jim. The lawsuit alleges the White House is violating the network's and Acosta's First and Fifth Amendment rights and requests the correspondent get his credentials back immediately. In a statement, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders responded saying, quote, "This is just more grandstanding from CNN, and we will vigorously defend against this lawsuit. The First Amendment is not served when a single reporter of more than 150 present attempts to monopolize the floor." Earlier this evening, a judge ordered the administration to respond to the lawsuit by 11 a.m. tomorrow and set a hearing for 3:30 p.m. My next guest has had his fair share of battles with Acosta. Joining me now, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Oh, Sean, how do we maintain this critical balance between the press, the president, and the Constitution?
Actually, I think the answer is fairly simple. And that is that if we can agree to a set of standards of decorum and professionalism, then we should be okay. I think that the press should be able to ask any question that they want. And where I think some of the reporting is off on this is they keep talking about, Acosta's being punished for asking a tough question. That's not at all what happened. It's Acosta's behavior that's the issue. And I think that the president was asked and answered his question multiple times. Jim Acosta didn't want to ask a question. He wanted to debate the president. And I think that there's a difference. And so I think if we can actually set a level of decorum and professional standards, which is you have every right to ask whatever you want, but when it's answered, you allow your other colleagues to get their chance. And Sarah's statement was right. I mean, you've got 150 plus members of the press at that press thing that all had questions, and they wanted theirs answered. And it wasn't Jim's press conference to dominate. So there's a level of decorum, which is you get your question answered. The president says thank you, and let's move on. Yeah. You don't. It's not your microphone. It's not your press conference.
Now, what about the idea that CNN is saying that protection of a free press is enshrined in the Constitution, and
it is.
And the president doesn't get to kick out the press because they challenge him. And CNN says, Jim Acosta has been doing this for a long time, and it is his job to challenge the president.
But Kennedy, a couple things. Let's just be clear. CNN is still there. There are 4, 5, 6, 7 other members of the CNN team covering the White House.
They have 50 passes to the White House.
Okay, so there you go. They have 50 passes. Plus, it's just those are what they call the hard passes. They can apply for a day pass or a week pass at any time, which is how a lot of reporters gain access to the White House on a daily basis. So let's be clear. This isn't the be-all and end-all. But the bottom line is this doesn't have to do with asking tough questions. It has to do with decorum. Jim got to ask his question. And then he got to ask it again. And then
it's annoying, and I understand that, the rationalization is, well, this is how the president treats us, therefore we're allowed to treat him this way. And the emotional volley, the back and forth between the president and the press is actually satisfying for both parties. The problem that a lot of these reporters have with Jim Acosta is he hogs up. He's such a ball hog, and it's about him. It's not about issues. And there are some really critical questions for this and every administration that other people don't get to ask because Jim Acosta is being a dum-dum.
Well, sure. I mean, listen, like you said, there's 150 folks there. They all have questions. Why don't they get to ask theirs? Because Jim's trying to monopolize this. Now, if it were up to me, I think let's bring the temperature down. Let's come to a reasonable compromise. The compromise being Jim gets his pass back, but every reporter, and frankly, here's the issue. This is the thing. This isn't 5% of these guys behave in a professional, respectable manner. They ask the president or the press secretary their question, they get it answered, and they move on. They report on it. That's what America's all about. The Constitution doesn't give you the right to go wherever you want and whatever, but no one has a problem with what Jim asked. And that's where CNN's sort of not giving you the full story. They keep talking about we have a right to, no kidding. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the president agrees with that. They have a right to ask what they want. But they don't have a right to do it in the manner in which they do. At a certain point, it's another reporter's turn.
If it's such an issue, then have another reporter go there. And CNN, I think they're kind of being like Emmanuel Macron, who's attacking the president because he's trying to get any sort of leverage he possibly can. And CNN is trying to get any attention they can because their viewership is waning.
Well, and I actually, here's the thing that I think is sad about this. I think there's a good number of the press corps in the White House, I've talked to a bunch of them, that don't like the fact that Acosta's pass get pulled, but they also don't like standing up for him because they're like...
I think pulling his pass makes him a martyr. And that's unfortunate because that's what his colleagues are going to write about. And that is when the press gets defensive. And they rush to the defense of James Rosen and James Risen when the Obama administration was making life very difficult for them.
Right, but I think a lot of the reporters that I talk to in the press corps right now are saying, I don't like being put in this position because I feel like I have to defend a colleague's, need for a pass, but I don't like the antics, and I don't like it being all about them, and I don't like the selfishness.
I mean, frankly,
right.
if we can be honest for a second, it is annoying, and, Jim Acosta has some responsibility here, too. I don't feel bad for him, and if he wants to behave like an adult, then he can wear his big boy pants and go back to the White House and have a great time with everyone else. But until then, he's got to go back to JCPenney's
right. And here's the thing, though.
We have to go, but I
knows...
love you tremendously, and I would like you to come back in person.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.